Hello, welcome to my channel, or welcome back. I hope you're all doing well today. I have a message for someone whose manifestations haven't been working. Or have they? So I get the sense that you're someone who has been putting out certain energies out into the world and casting your spell in a way, but the results that you're seeing are not what you expected on the level of mind. And the reason for this is that when you put out these energies, it's not like you can actually really predict exactly what's going to happen, because you have to allow yourself to be surprised, because sometimes being surprised is the fun part of it. So it's almost like you set yourself up for failure by having certain expectations in place. But let's just pull some cards and see what comes out. All right, so we have Temperance. Oh, she's this beautiful fairy with a back tattoo. How cool. I love her wings. So there is this kind of sense of, yeah, like there might be something behind you that you're not seeing. It's like that sort of vibe of like, if someone stuck a Post-it note to your back, everyone around you would see it, but you don't see it. So it's almost like there's something you're not quite seeing, where I feel like everyone around you is seeing the energy that you're putting out, but it's almost like you're too close to it, or you don't have that outside perspective to see it. So like, for example, if you were putting out the energy of wealth, it's almost like you could be holding yourself back because you're still thinking like, okay, I'm putting out this energy of wealth, why is my bank account still empty? And it's almost like you're reinforcing that inside your mindset, and it's holding you back from those results. But when you're putting out that energy, everyone around you is seeing that. Like, people would see you as someone very classy, high maintenance, good taste, that sort of thing. But it's like you're not seeing it. But it's like you need to make it align so that you yourself are seeing that potential within yourself. So it's not just about the energy that you put out, but it's also about what you recognize within yourself. So it's almost like you could be holding yourself back also with some sort of shadow aspect, is what I'm getting with this feeling of something on your back that you can't see, where it's almost like maybe on a conscious level that you were sort of saying things like, yes, I want to be wealthy, yes, I want a lot of money, but it's almost like these shadows are still clinging to you, where it's like you haven't worked through them, and so they still control your reality. So it's like if you have a shadow relationship with money or love, friendship, career, whatever you're manifesting, it's almost like the shadow will show up to show you that it's still there, because it's something you haven't fully worked through. But it's also not necessarily like this shadow work necessarily always has to be done consciously, but it's more about orienting yourself to your shadow in a different way, where it's like, instead of this common conception that we have of shadow work of like, I think we all know that the shadow is all these things that are taught to us as being undesirable or gross, nasty, bad. And so we kind of repress it within ourselves. And I think a lot of people have this misconception about shadow work that it has to be like, okay, you're looking at those bad parts of yourself so that you can get rid of them. But it's really more about integrating them and bringing together the opposites. So it's like, if you have this conscious feeling of like you want to be wealthy, but then you have the unconscious shadow relating to money turns you evil, it's not just about getting rid of that and being like, no, money doesn't make you evil, because in a sense that is repressing your shadow. It's about integrating it. So you bring together the two extremes and you find that middle ground where there's truth in both, or you're like seeing the polarity of something that is more like a sliding scale rather than anything that is truthfully on either end, or it's like you're seeing both things as true at the same time, or both things as untrue at the same time. But it's like accepting this contrast. And with the Temperance card, it also relates to that of like you have a foot in both worlds in a way. So you're seeing the duality of things, but then not choosing to veer into any side of the duality, where like it can also relate to things if you're looking at the world as material or spiritual. It's almost like you could be oscillating back and forth between the two. And this is what could be causing you some troubles in your manifestation. It's like you might still have this really rigid mindset of like the material world is observable reality. This is what exists. Like this is real. And it's almost like that is conditioned into you also. Like what the culture of our time says is real is what you accept as real. Like if you lived in a culture or a time period where there was more of an emphasis on spirituality, then maybe you would see those spiritual forces as something that exist in reality. Whereas if you live in a more of like this Western rationalist sort of perspective, you might dismiss those things as being part of the spiritual world. And so then you might think of your manifestations as things that exist solely in the spiritual world. And this is where you might have this feeling of things aren't quite crossing over, where it's almost like you are doing the spiritual practice, but you don't fully believe in it. Like, you don't believe that it is a component of reality. You see it as something separate from reality. But the whole concept of temperance is that you are walking between both worlds. You're sort of bridging the gap. And there's this feeling of bringing things together into wholeness. So stopping yourself from creating that separation. All right, we have the Knave of Chalices. This is just like such a funny card to me because he's a grotesque little gargoyle. It's so cute. But we have this cross, and there's a chalice of blood and all these little imps, and then the statue of this little gargoyle. He has like a little hat on, which is cute too. He's half stone, and then he's turning into this beastly creature at the top. So it's like he's being animated by this cup of blood, and then also this cross with a gem at the center. So this is really this feeling of you might be being delivered some sort of message in some way. So it could be in relation to your manifestations, is like it's actually showing you a deeper message of things that you thought you wanted or that you didn't want, where it's this feeling of like, okay, if you have to flip a coin over something and then you get disappointed at the results of the coin toss, it's showing you what you actually wanted. So similarly, if there's some sort of manifestation that you're doing and then it doesn't happen, and then you're almost relieved that it didn't happen, or like this feeling of like, oh, I knew it wasn't going to happen anyway, it's almost showing you either on a conscious or subconscious level what you actually wanted to happen. And this is more important than anything that you would say on a conscious level. So like verbally out loud, you could say, I want $1 million or something like that. But then when you check your bank account the next day, there's not $1 million. You're like, well, I knew it wasn't going to happen anyway. That's showing you that at your deepest core level, you didn't truly believe it, or you didn't really want it. So it's showing you that what actually creates your reality are those things that are really at your core, right? There's this parable of this woman who she goes to a church, and the preacher is telling her about the faith the size of a mustard seed that can move mountains. And so she goes home and she prays and prays that the mountain is moved, and she talks about faith and all of this. And then the next morning she wakes up and the mountain is still there, and she shouts, I knew that damn mountain would still be there, right? It's this feeling like if you truly have this conviction in yourself that something is going to be some way, then it will be that way, because you are creating your reality around yourself through those deep convictions that really go beyond the level of just thought, where it's like you might be thinking you want something, but on this far deeper level, it's like at your core, like the thing that informs all the decisions you make, like every perspective that you have on a situation, that could be a little bit different than what you're consciously saying you want. And then there's also this feeling of, again, integration of the self, like really getting to that integrated feeling where it's like parts of yourself might not be in alignment. So again, it's this feeling of the shadow not being fully integrated, where it's like one side of yourself. Like maybe you have a personality A and B is how you could look at it. Is like personality A wants something with full conviction, but personality B wants the opposite with complete conviction. And it's like you're being torn apart by these two halves. So it's like you have this internal fight going on within yourself. And for any of your manifestations to come to light, you need it to be so that your entire self is united in its mission, in its conviction, all striving towards the same thing, or all accepting the same reality. Whereas if you have parts of yourself that are divided, working against each other, it's like you can kind of see it as like two people pulling a rope in a game of tug of war, and it's the rope stays completely in tension, right? It's nothing is moving. But then, if you had two people standing on the same side of the rope, they would just be reeling it in, right? So there's this feeling about, like it's almost like you're caught between two worlds, right? Where like this imp is being animated in some way, but then at the same time his feet are still made of stone. So it's like this feeling of being grounded to the pedestal, being stuck in maybe an old version of reality, where maybe there's a part of yourself that wants things to stay the same, and then a part of yourself that wants things to change. And there's this tension where it could feel like you're frozen in time or kind of suspended. Like I'm getting this hanging man energy of like the Hanged Man, of there's this feeling like you're not like fully able to move in the direction that you should be, or like progressing along the path because you're frozen in some way. And I get the sense that it is like clinging to this old version of self, or maybe there's certain voices in your head, or maybe like these voices in your head are informed by certain people in your life, where there could be people who you have elevated to the status of authority in your life. So this could be something like a parent, teacher, friend, or psychotherapist, where it's like you're taking their opinion as something of value rather than just something to learn from, like to see the different perspectives in the world. It's almost like you're internalizing them in a way where it could be, again, like it's causing this inner conflict where it's like you might believe something with a really strong conviction, but because you've made someone else an authority in your life, it's almost like, oh, well, I don't know, I might not be right about that. Or like, you know, like this person might have the right idea about things. And then again, it's causing this internal division between what you know to be true, and then you're planting the seeds of doubt within yourself. And again, this is where this faith that can move mountains cannot operate when there are seeds of doubt within it. So it's about eliminating that doubt and, again, like coming back to that true version of yourself. All right, we have the Four of Swords. So there is this feeling, like maybe you need some true rest. Like when your mind and body are too active, sometimes that can cause you to just be kind of all over the place, right? Like what you want when it comes to this sort of focusing of energy that you would need to manifest change in your reality, it's almost like you're honing a beam of light, right? Like a laser beam, like laser focus. But when you're kind of all over the place, then it's like, you know, you're lacking the energy. It could be that the light is not shining strongly enough, or it's more like someone like wildly flailing a flashlight about, shining light on all sorts of things. So you're getting glimpses of little things, but it's not concentrated enough. Like what I'm getting is like when you use a magnifying glass to burn a little leaf, or when I was a kid, my brother used to burn ants alive with a magnifying glass. So it was like this feeling of like actually creating power through your focus and attention. You need it to be very strong, like almost single-minded. And that doesn't necessarily mean to just be focusing on one thing at once. But again, it's coming back to this feeling of needing to be aligned. Like you can't be all over the place. Like, so for example, if you're manifesting love, right? You might be a little bit all over the place with some of your fantasies of like timelines, or what the results might look like, or like the type of person that you'd want to be with. Like it's almost like you're overwhelming yourself with options maybe, and you're kind of imagining a lot of scenarios playing out. But it's, again, it's like it could be diluted where you're kind of flinging things far afield, or it could even be like you're focused on one person, but the possibilities that you were imagining with this person are very separate, where maybe there's even, you're imagining possibilities where things don't work out. And again, that's where you're just like throwing things too far afield, where you need to focus that energy just on exactly truly what it is that you want. So it doesn't even necessarily have to be with a specific person, but you need to have that vision of what you want this romantic relationship to look like. That needs to be a singularly unified vision. And when that vision is truly honed and focused into that one thing, then that's when it can actually come to be in your so-called reality. But it has to exist within as a fully unified vision. And this unified vision can only come from the integrated self. All right, we have the Knight of Wands. Ooh, it's like the scary Grim Reaper on the white horse, the pale horse of death. So there is this feeling like you could be kind of rearing up almost. Like it could be like you could be frozen in some ways. Like maybe you're being stopped from doing something, or you're stopping yourself. Like the sense that I'm getting is that you're kind of pulling back at the last minute every time. And this is where your manifestations might not be coming to truly their final form. It's like edging. And it's like you keep almost getting there, but then at the last moment that doubt comes in. Like I mentioned with the story of the woman and running to the window, it's like there are moments where you truly believe, but then that seed of doubt comes in and it kind of cuts it short, where it's almost like you're about to pull back the curtain, and then at the last second you decide not to, and you stop yourself. And that's kind of the sense that I'm getting, is like it's almost like you're shooting yourself in the foot, or it's like you're causing your own death. It's almost like it could be like an addiction to this punishing cycle of denying yourself what you truly want. And it could be like there's this feeling like maybe when you were growing up, people told you like life isn't fair, you'll never get what you want, you're fated to all these things. Like you're fated to a generational poverty, you're fated to generational cycles of abuse that lack true intimacy in romantic relationships, or you are fated to recreate the relationships that you had with your family members, with your friendships, or like you are fated to do this one thing in your career, that sort of thing, where it's like you really internalize that at such a deep level that it then comes to be. Like I mentioned, it's like because you have that strong conviction, and it's almost like it's like, you know, obviously on the level of thought, right? You could say like, I don't want those things to happen, but it could almost be like, it's like getting this like masochistic feeling of like, you almost enjoy the suffering on some level. I mean, that's what it has to be for this to keep happening. Where again, like you obviously no one wants to suffer, no one wants to have unfulfilling relationships or be in poverty, but like on one level it's almost like you're addicted to that feeling of like wanting something and not getting it. Like that's the sense I'm getting, is it's almost like, yeah, you're shooting yourself in the foot, or you're doubting yourself, or you're like relieved when things don't come true, where it's almost like if you had the power to actually create the life that you wanted, like truly all your visions came to be, you had complete control over your life, that can almost be terrifying. Like that's actually very scary, because then that means you can't blame other people. You can't say like, you know, when people say, oh, my ex was a psycho or something like that, you can't take accountability for saying, okay, I created that situation. So it's like you're deferring the power away from yourself of like, it's too hard to start a business in this economy, or, you know, I'm just an unlucky person. And you're removing all that agency from yourself, and in a way that can be freeing. But true liberation is understanding that you are able to create the exact reality that you want. But again, like it's almost intimidating, where you will be holding yourself back in this kind of immature way just because you're afraid to realize your own power, or like I mentioned, you're kind of addicted to that push and pull of not having what you want. You know, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that if that's the way that you want to live, but where this could be causing some sort of internal conflict is like you could be diminishing your confidence, where you're thinking like, oh, my manifestations aren't working, I'm not a powerful enough spellcaster. But that's not really the case. Actually, you are very powerful, but you're misusing your power to create a reality that is not necessarily ideal for yourself, or it's almost like you've used your powers of magic to brainwash yourself and put yourself under a hypnotic spell of being in this kind of sleep state where you're not aware of your true power. And it's almost like, again, this creates a sort of safety net for yourself, because it's almost like you, a kid in a candy shop is what I'm getting. It's like if you come to realize this power too early, before all your senses are fully honed, or you have an understanding of what this power should be used for, it's almost like you could go a little bit off the rails with it. Like, just I'm imagining in a very absurd situation, right? Like, I don't know, like when kids are running for class president in like 5th grade, and they'll say things like, I want to put a swimming pool on the roof, and that sort of thing, where it's like, it's good to dream big, but you also need to have an understanding of like moving with grace. So that's kind of what this process is teaching you, is like to move with grace, so that when you are fully realized in your power, that you are acting in a very virtuous and discerning manner, really. So it's almost like don't feel like you're being withheld from anything. It's not like any external power to you is stopping you from doing this. Like, no one's placed a curse on you. There's no higher power that is holding you back. Like, it's not like God is like stopping you from seeing behind the veil or anything like that. Like, no, it's within yourself. Like, within yourself, you need to pull back the curtain. Like, if you've ever seen or read The Wizard of Oz, it's kind of that feeling of like you pull back the curtain and realize that it was actually you all along. Like, you're almost underwhelmed by it, where it's like, oh, I thought I would have to pray to some sort of deity who would then appear to me and then grant me the power through some sort of ritual, right? Is maybe how people think of magical powers. But really, it's almost like a anticlimactic in a way, of like you realize that all along you have been already exercising your powers, but it's like, again, like to shoot yourself in the foot almost, or like hold yourself back. I think we have the sun in reverse, but I'll show it to you right side up because I love this one too. It's like she's a kind of bat vampire lady, and her clothing is peeling away, and she's transforming under the moon. But it's not a full moon. In fact, it's a waning moon. But there is the sense of like, yeah, like you're not fully in touch with that state of being that allows your manifestations to come into reality, where it's like, if you think about the sun energy, it's like this childlike energy almost, or this feeling of being transformed, being reborn. And then in this card, especially, this feeling of being naked and growing wings and being able to fly away. And getting this in reverse, it's almost this feeling of like you're not quite in that energy. And so it could be that, again, like your mind could just be overactive to the point where you're feeding yourself too many things that are maybe freaking you out a little. Like you could be reading about magical processes or all this spiritual stuff on the internet. You could be watching a lot of tarot readings that are giving you kind of conflicting information about how you can use your gifts, where really this whole thing is like, again, it is intuitive. It's something within you that has always been within you. There is no God external to you. Like God is already within you. You need to find it inside for yourself. But when you're a little bit too distracted, it's like you can't get back to that state. Like if you think about before you were conditioned to understand what reality is, right? What a relationship should look like, how wealth manifests in the world. Like these are all things that are taught to you. But before that, when you were a child, right, like what were you thinking about? No, you were just having a pure experience of like looking around and being like, oh, that's a beautiful tree. Like the light that's reflecting off of the dewdrop on the leaf, it contains every color of the rainbow, and just getting lost in that magic of just pure perception and just being and just feeling things, right? And this immediacy of it. Whereas now as an adult, you're kind of, you're now layered with all these thoughts about like, oh, it's kind of strange that that tree looks a little bit out of place. Like maybe the city should come and remove it or something like that. I don't know. But it's like you're just adding too much. And like I mentioned with the spiritual stuff, again, it could be like you're adding way too much that you don't actually need to know, right? Because the child doesn't know all of the world religions and all the theory behind them, right? It's getting to that state where you don't have all that information clouding your brain. So if you're ever feeling like, how do I get back in touch with that state of pure being? And you start to think about concepts and signifiers and all this, right? Just what you could do is remind yourself, like, would a child be thinking about all this semiotic metaphysical nonsense? Like, no, a child wouldn't understand it. They wouldn't know what to do with it. Like it's not relevant to the task at hand exactly. Where it's like, if you want to write a book on metaphysics, that is a wonderful thing, and you should, if that's your calling, you should do that. And it could be something you enjoy doing some of the time. It's like, it could be like an interest or a hobby of yours. But when it comes to getting into the state, you can release a lot of that. Or it's like, maybe you've internalized some of this knowledge on a deeper, almost symbolic level, where it's helping you bring together the union of opposites. But again, it's not necessary to this process. All right, we have the High Priestess. Ooh, exactly. So it's like, you're already the High Priestess. There's no initiation ritual that someone else can give to you, or any sort of like magical tome you could read that would give you this knowledge. It's like the wisdom exists within you, and it's something that has always existed within every person of your generational lineage as well. So this is like, I'm getting the sense of like, this has been passed down through your ancestors in your body, is what I'm getting. Is like your body holds the lessons, and it's just about tapping into them. And it's like, you may have even had some profound experiences that have made you sure that your ancestors are still with you in some way, or where your body has elicited a sensation or just some sort of feeling that is transcending your ego or your human existence. Like if you read Eckhart Tolle, he talks about the pain body and how that manifests. And so this is something that probably a lot of women especially could feel, is maybe you've had some sort of interaction with this pain body, and it could be like a physical or an emotional pain. Like I would say, from my experience, it's something that really manifests in the heart, as something that it's almost like maybe you have experienced this pain sometime in your life, especially when it first manifested, maybe around puberty. But it's almost like if you ever experienced it again since then, it's like you were quite certain that you had never felt it to that extent, or that it was like, yeah, like I'm getting like this generational buildup of like, you understood that this exact feeling had been felt by previous female ancestors, or just ancestors in general. And it could be that you're having other sensations too that are not exactly like painful or anything, but it's just like maybe relating to your intuition, or there's just something that you have been feeling or experiencing that is showing you that this type of consciousness is not something that is like so unique to you. If like you stumbled across the right book and you read it, like you're so lucky to have the internet so you can read all these sacred texts that your ancestors didn't get to read, right? They didn't need those sacred texts. They were just in it, right? And it's like, it's just coming to terms with that almost, because it could be like you've been working really hard to develop some sort of spiritual practice or spiritual powers, and it can almost, yeah, like it can build up your ego a little bit of like this feeling like I'm a really powerful witch, right? And like you're the only one, that these other normies around me don't get it, right? But it's like, it's almost like like a humbling factor that actually empowers you more. Is that when you humble yourself and understand that everyone is creating the reality, everyone in your family line has created their reality in some way, whether that manifests in something that you see as good or something you see as unhealthy, can really depend. But it's like, it's understanding that this exists within every person. And I'm especially getting that with like this High Priestess card, right? It's like she's looking at this one skull, but then she's also standing on a pile of skulls. So it's almost like this, you could see it as kind of like a fairy. Like I think in Irish culture, it has this of like a family fairy that it carries down through the generations. And it's almost like it could be a curse sometimes, but in this sense, I'm getting more of like a blessing, where it's like this fairy, which you could call God or the will or whatever you want to see it as, of like this magical consciousness, the manifester within you, right? It has visited everyone in your family line, and now it is visiting you as you become animated as a living being. But outside of time, right, it's present within everyone. So it's kind of like flitting along down. Like that's again what I'm getting the vines on this card of like the family tree. Is it's visiting everyone in your family, and it's like maybe there are specific things to your family that are different to how other people would use these magical gifts, and so that's why it could be like what people consider like, oh, I'm special, I'm like a special witch. It's like maybe in your family these powers manifested more as like things to do with communicating with the spirit world, or like doing some sort of magical practice that might involve like herbs or divination or anything like that. Maybe you have like a family history of like doing tarot readings or something like that. But then in other people's family lines, it could be like they came from a long line of people who are more like financial advisors, and it manifests in a slightly different way, where it's like you might be really like on the surface level, on the ego level, looking very spiritual. Maybe you wear special gemstones, and another person, they're like working some sort of high caliber job in finance, and they're playing the stock market, and you might think like, I'm more magical and spiritual and this person is more living in the material world. But it's really just like about seeing those different expressions of how we are commanding this energy and creating our reality. Like we're all doing it. It's not anything so special or unique, really. And so this could help you realize a little bit on why your manifestations are not working out for you, because it could be like, again, you're either externalizing your power or you're denying it. Of like, if you have a certain way of going about things, like maybe you're a writer and you're writing stories, and you could be thinking like, okay, I'm not doing enough of my spiritual practice. I should be casting spells or like lighting candles or whatever all these other people are doing. But it's like, actually your writing is your magic, because you are creating the story, you're creating the world that you're going to live in. So it's really just about understanding that you already have the power, and how you express it will be unique to you in some ways. But it's also something that carries on just physically within your genetics, your genetic line. All right, we have the Star. And so this is a card of wish fulfillment, which is very relevant to the reading. So there is this feeling that your wishes will be granted. Like a heartfelt wish is always granted. And again, it's coming back to this feeling of heartfelt, right? Like if you just say on like the surface level of like, whatever, I want $1 million, you kind of throw it away, right? That's not heartfelt. You need to feel it at your core of like, that you already have it, that you are deserving of it, that is your reality. And it's like it's almost like delusion, but it's not really delusion because you accept that this is true. It's like if you view it as delusion, then that's when it falls away. Of like, okay, I'm gonna be delusional and pretend that I'm wealthy and go out and spend a lot of money, and then I'll get rich. It's like, no, again, you're shooting yourself in the foot there because you're dismissing it. But you really have to lean into that feeling of just like really being in a commune with God, like in communion with like working together, this feeling of creating your reality, but working with the universe, like dreaming with the universe is what I'm getting, where it's almost as if like, you know, you could look at it on the macrocosm or on the microcosm of just like the way that the continents collide with each other, like this kind of really slow change that takes place as trees are planted and grow for 100 years and they get cut down, or as a human being is born and then dies. It's like your wishes are coming true, but on a smaller scale, but it's the same natural process. It's the same feeling of birthing something or planting a seed that is then growing. And it's like you need to be the one to water those seeds from this deepest, truest place. And you also need to first put the seed down into the ground before you can water it. So like I mentioned about being really clear about your manifestations, you need to, again, like you need to drop the seed. You need to put it in the ground, where it's like you need to like fully say like, okay, this is truly what I want, or like I truly believe this, like this is my reality. And you have to almost let go of it. Like if you're grasping it in your hand too tightly and clinging to it, then it's almost like you can't allow the seed to grow. It's like you need to let it go in a sense. And this can kind of relate to a feeling of detachment, or again a cessation of mental activity. Is like you almost need to forget about it or take it for granted that you have already manifested it. Where it's like if you were thinking too strongly about like, okay, the manifestation didn't work, I need to start from scratch and, you know, think of a new way of doing this. It's like you're still grasping the seed, right? But when you say like, okay, I've put the energy out and I'm just feeding it, and now I'm going to, you know, like meditate or do something else, or work on your art, like whatever you're doing, that is then the water that is helping the seed to grow. But again, you need to first release it into the world. It's like laying an egg as well, where it's like if the chicken held the egg inside its body, like the egg can't hatch. It needs to first be laid onto the ground and then you can let it incubate. But it's like when you're just you're just like holding things too tightly. You're grasping to possibilities, or like again like this feeling of like you're holding yourself back, you're holding the reins, you're holding it up. All right, okay, we have the Seven of Pentacles. So again, like this feeling of like a watched pot never boils, where if you're like checking too much, like again, it's like this woman who runs to the window and says like, oh, the mountain's still there. It's like you're almost confirming it because you're waiting, or you're checking on something too early before the crop has fully grown, where it's like it's almost like you need to allow things to come to fruition, and it's like you'll know when it has come to fruition. Every time you check and say like, okay, it hasn't happened yet, my manifestations aren't working, it's like again you're holding yourself back or you're stopping it from being true. It's almost like if you forget about it and you say like, okay, it's already out there, it's already growing, I don't need to do anything more, like it's out of my hands. On the level of ego, at least, like on the level of mind, it's out of your hands, but spiritually you're still working towards it in a way that is not necessarily conscious, then it will come to fruition. But like again, where you sabotage yourself is by just checking too often of like that is like planting the seeds of doubt. Like I don't know if the grapes are going to grow, or you're like pulling the seed out of the ground to see if it's sprouted yet. It's like just have faith, like just trust, and things will be brought to you. All right, let's draw one card to wrap up this reading. All right, so we have the Three of Pentacles. So there is this feeling of like there are parts of yourself that are building something. And as you can see, this card, it's like these sticks that are all being held together, I think by ribbons. It really reminds me of the Blair Witch Project of like, yeah, this creating some sort of magical sigil, but then it's also corresponding to this feeling of like being in a holy place and allowing these sides of yourself to work on a project. So it's again like Also, the symbol of the Gothic churches that appears on this card is a very powerful symbol to meditate on. So I think this could really relate to, again, like allowing the work to be done through you, or to do the work in a spiritual sense that is less related to ego, where it's like if you are trying to accomplish your manifestations by just thinking about them constantly, like running it through your head of these scenarios, or like putting mental energy of like, I want this to happen, I want this to happen, like that's almost holding you back. But when you plant the seed, and you know, this could involve mental activity, but then you move into the spiritual development of things where it's like you have actually released the manifestation, you're not thinking about it, but you are cultivating it still through spiritual practice in a way. And this could be like meditation, or the contemplation of holy symbols, or through your art that is magic in its own way of like just creativity. Or you're building something, you're working on a project, some sort of large scale project that is integrating different aspects of yourself, that will help you bring these disparate aspects of yourself more together, where it's like, like finding that sense of wholeness in yourself through doing other things than just focusing only on your manifestations will allow your manifestations to come to light. So like, for example, it's like, okay, you've done your manifestation, you've planted the seed, now maybe you're undertaking a project, and there are these different sides of yourself. Like you have this creative side, but then you have this ambitious side that wants to cultivate wealth, but you also have this side that really appreciates aesthetics. You have this side that has this strong leadership skills and wants to bring together community. It's like by working on that project rather than the thing that you are specifically manifesting, it's like you're bringing together all those parts of yourself and you're feeling more whole in yourself. And then from that place of wholeness, your manifestations are sprouting. It's almost like you fertilize the soil, or like you've taken a step back and you're allowing the plant to grow. So it's like improving your life in many ways because you are using your conscious efforts to work on some sort of project or creative ambition, but then at the same time you're allowing your manifestations to fruit without sabotaging yourself. Because really that's what the core of it is. It's not that you are not a powerful enough manifester, you know, you failed as a witch or anything like that. No, it's just that you are sabotaging yourself through your own power. Like you don't understand. It's almost as if you had built something and then you go to sleep, but then you're sleepwalking and you dismantle this whole thing that you've built, and then you wake up in the morning and you're like, who did this? No, it was you all along. You were the Blair Witch kicking over the piles of rocks or whatever. No, that's a good movie though. I would say that overall, the message from these cards is to have confidence in yourself and to continue working on just finding wholeness in yourself and finding that peace and stillness, and not thinking too much, not filling your brain with too many messages that are like freaking you out or confusing you, because that is essentially like the nature of thought, is that it leads us into paradoxes and spirals that we could contemplate endlessly. And like I mentioned, if you're a philosopher or an artist, this could be really important or powerful for you to harness. But when it comes to your own spiritual growth and manifestations, just put all that stuff out of mind, don't get confused, and just sit there, enjoy life. All right, well, thank you so much for watching this reading. If you're interested in a pre-recorded personalized reading, please shoot me an email. I love to film those. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.